And will tell you that my expectation was that you would come here prepared with specific answers today, because these are real serious questions. If I gave to a charity out of my budget, I will tell you, I would hear about it. Can you imagine if I was giving to charities of my choice out of my department budget funds, and in fact, I was told I could not do it, specifically by Mr. Huckleberry last year for an internal county-owned facility. Now we're talking about outside organizations. And if I start donating to the charities of my choice, and in addition to this, I just want to make it clear to the public, we give, just about every week, you will see charitable donations come through that are from federal funds that are allocated. We have a board that decides where those funds are to be allocated. And I trust that board, and I trust what they're doing with those federal funds. But in addition to that, we constantly get requests via the Board of Supervisors contingency funds, which I always bring up the point, that is supposed to be used for emergencies and very unusual circumstances only. However, we have parties coming through, Juneteenth parties, one I can think of, every year, and some of these very charities that individual supervisors are giving to get funds from the federal grant money, and they also get funds from the Board of Supervisors contingency funds. And we have a board that oversees that to ensure that there's fairness. And in this case, I think I would have asked Mr. Whitaker's if he was here to address this. And I think that we need to address this. $7,500 given within 2 months certainly violates that spirit of the $5,000 limitation. And finally, I do have an email from Mr. Burke dated July 2nd. And we were discussing Supervisor Bronson recently giving $7,000 of taxpayer funds, and it is not her money. It belongs to you, the taxpayers, and that's something we need to make really clear, that this is what is happening, is that people are having their picture taken or getting a thank you for giving your money to these various charities and internal organizations, which is wrong. We should be getting a thank you to the taxpayers. For example, the tough shed that Mr. Carroll got, I got a picture sent to me that shows, thank you Supervisor Carroll for sending us the $3,500 tough shed that he purchased out of his budget. That isn't right. What it should say is thank you Pima County taxpayers.
Yes.
Number one. And number two, I'll give you a chance, Mr. Carroll, to respond. Why aren't we budgeting for this in the Pima Animal Care budget instead of allowing this type of behavior to go on? It's wrong and it shouldn't happen. I just have a couple more comments and then I'll give the floor to you, Mr. Carroll. I'd also like to cite Board Supervisor Policy D29.4 on page 6 of 10. There are specific requirements and conditions for these awards to outside agencies, typically grant funds that must have a specific purpose. I've seen no specific purpose provided. There are templates that must be used and an aggregate funding cap to be monitored by the budget control, i.e. finances, for these purposes on an annual basis. This is according to our own policy. As I said, Williams County, Virginia had this problem, same problem that we have right here in 2012. There were allegations these donations gave incumbent supervisors unfair advantage during elections and gave the appearance of doling out our taxpayer monies to these charities as if it were our own money. Charities in Pima County, as I said, receive grant monies from the federal government, millions each year. In addition, the board has been voting for these organizations out of the Board of Supervisor Contingency Fund. Supervisors allocating these monies is not right. I would like the county administrator, the county attorney, to clearly define the rules regarding outside agency donations, and I would also like to see an end to monies for internal departments coming directly from supervisor budgets. These are not supervisors' monies. These belong to the taxpayers. I say that again and again because I see people run by and thank the supervisors. Thank you for giving me this money. It's not my money. It's not anyone on this board's money. It's the taxpayers' money.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And finally, as you can see,
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Excuse me, Supervisor Valadez.
I believe the room should be respectful of the supervisor when she's speaking.
I would ask the room to please be respectful of the supervisors when they are addressing the chair. Thank you.
As you can see from that picture, you know, this group, this is just one example of how people think that the supervisor is the all-powerful, almighty, thank you very much for spending taxpayer money. And I can't reiterate enough how wrong this picture is and how obscene it is, because this belongs to the taxpayers. And to thank Supervisor Carroll, that is just wrong. He should have turned that money back to the general fund, and if there was a significant need, then Mr. Huckleberry or Mr. Carroll could have put an item on the agenda for all of the supervisors to vote upon. I reserve my final motion and will allow Mr. Carroll the floor.